You'll never guess who I bumped into today, darling.
Who was that?
No. Are you a puff?
No, I'm not. What's going on?
What, look, positioning of occasional furniture.
The unions ran independent television.
My first ever shoot as a young researcher, I turn up and a car comes up, big car, with only a driver and nobody else in it. So I said, well, who's that? They said, that's the electrician's driver. And I said, well, where's the electrician? And they said, oh, he likes to bring his own car so he can claim the mileage as well.
Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance.
And of course, that was the time. You remember when the videotape engineer earned £150,000 in a single year. This is back in the 70s.
For we were young and sure to have our way.
We were quite prepared to pay overtime, but not double, treble, and quadruple overtime. I mean, that's when it became absolutely ludicrous.
The video operators at LWT earned more than I did.
And the busy years went rushing by us.
What's the difference between an Arab oil sheikh and a London Weekend VT engineer? Well, the answer is the Arab oil sheikh doesn't get London waiting.
But you were in the union. Did you think you could just control the management?
Well, I'll never forget with two of us, myself and a guy called Andy Forrester, negotiating on behalf of the producers and directors and walking into the management and demanding 20% increase in wages. And I think they offered us 5, and we stomped around and said no, so they offered us 18. And I remember we looked at each other and we thought, how fast can we get out of this room? So we threw in a few other things, and we said we wanted televisions and videos and everything else, and they agreed to all that as well.
Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever and a day.
Many was the night I was in a studio on my knees begging the technicians to let us finish something. You know, the clock was ticking to 10 o'clock. And we needed one more shot, which would have taken us to 10:05. And they just say, no, we're going home. Plugs would be pulled.
The management, as you discovered later, were paying tax rates of 95, 96%. Now, if you're paying tax rates of 95, 96% and you give in to a demand from the unions, it only cost you 5%. And therefore, the combination of how easy it was to take the station off the air, or any of the ITV stations off the air, combined with the tax rates the management were paying, gave the unions enormous power. But I think you've also got to accept that most of the managements were pretty gutless.
Most of them were, you know, pretty gruff Tory boards, and they would say, stand firm, management must manage. And when they saw what it was costing them, they were white in the face and crumpled. Big fight to start with, and then immediate crumple when they saw we're losing 10 million a day, or whatever it was. And the biggest delinquent here was Lou, who was producing shows for America in the 70s.
I can't get Glenda Jackson. I'll try to get Sophia Loren.
And if he was running out of time at midnight, he'd pay them double time, treble time, and then go around with pound notes in the studio. Anything to get the show finished. That, he was our weakest link, without any doubt.
Things came to a head with a wage demand on ITV, which, in their stupidity, the bosses of ITV at that time decided this was the ground on which to fight. So they said no. The unions went on strike, and ITV closed down. For 11 weeks, there was a test card.
I think it's a bloody nuisance because it keeps my kids quiet. And I like Coronation Street and Crossroads, and BBC just as rubbish.
Yeah, I always watched ITV. I never missed it, and I do miss it now.
We are a democracy and proud of it. Every member has the right to express his opinions through his representatives.
The man who was really turning the screw on ITV was Alan Sapper, head of the powerful ACTT union.
15% is not reasonable when you compare the profits of the companies. They're enormously rich and wealthy and made incredible profits over the last 4 years, and therefore we do feel that our claim of a substantial increase is fair and reasonable.
So we sat it out for 11 weeks, and eventually, of course, we came back begging for mercy, and we reached a settlement that was much higher than what they'd been asking for and what they were striking over in the first place. I think that's when everybody realised we were living in an Alice in Wonderland.
The Mad Hatter's Tea Party came to an end when Margaret Thatcher's government decided to take on the unions.
It's my cup of tea.
The miners' strike of 1984 marked the beginning of the end for union supremacy.
Legislation was enacted which stopped secondary picketing. You had to have ballots of members, and the thing got cleaned up.
If the unions refused to put out a service, if we had enough people in management who could put it out instead, we would still be able to earn advertising revenue. We'd still have our programs taken by the rest of the network. That was the beginning of the breaking of the unions.
Hello, good morning and welcome.
Having reigned supreme for over 30 years, the ITV unions were finally routed in a 1987 battle with TVAM.
TVAM's studio has been manned by secretaries and management since the technicians were locked out, and the programme has been directed by the company boss, Bruce Gingell.
We'll start off on camera 2 with Anna.
The real change, I think, came with TVAM when the union said, we're going on strike, and Bruce Gingell said, if you go out, you'll never come back, and they never did.
TVAM was ITV's breakfast television station run by maverick Australian businessman Bruce Gingell.
I'm not a union basher. I'm out to set up practices and conditions which you're used to in Australia. It's a matter of pushing, or dragging maybe, the ACTT into the 21st century.
As the dispute dragged on, the union began to realise that its iron grip on the ITV companies was over. After 3 months, the game was up, and Gingell sacked all the technicians. The unions could no longer call the shots. In fact, they couldn't even call a meeting with management.
We've sacked 234 workers who've worked for TVAM
And I want a meeting
loyally.
with Mr. Mole. It's my right as a General Secretary of this union to seek a meeting with your manager. The 10 points or the 12 points meant the destruction of a trade union organisation here.
You had a golden goose there and you've strangled it.
No, we didn't have a golden goose. We had a very settled employment situation with very rich companies. Those companies are getting even richer, and they want to keep it all to themselves.
By then, they knew the writing was on the wall. They knew things had changed. And it was amazing the speed at which these... I mean, they'd gone in 2 years. In 2 years, the unions went from being all-powerful to being irrelevant. And you couldn't have believed that was possible 5 years earlier.